date of reopening school under hybrid schedule. The purpose of this agenda item is to initiate discussion between board members and determine the date the district will reopen under the hybrid schedule. But before we do that, we have to hear from public comments, okay? And I'd like to read about our new procedure with public comments. Previously, public comments were read by the board president at the meeting. The process is now changed to allow the submitter to read those comments or their comments during the meeting. The procedure is as follows. The submitter logs into the board meeting at 6 p.m. When the submitter's name is read by President Montoya, they raise their hand and will raise their hand electronically to be recognized. There's a little function on Zoom that allows you to do that. The submitter's microphone will then be unmuted for them to read their comments. If there is a problem with unmuting the submitter, the comments will be read by the board president. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. When the timer goes off, their time is up. There will be a limit of 30 minutes per topic. Okay. So at this point, I'd like to open public comments, and I'd like to call our first person. Ms. Harder, am I on track?
Is she here?
Okay, I'd like to call on Deanna White.
Okay, Mr. Montoya, Ms. White is not there. Would you please read her comments?
Yes. I urge you to allow students to return to in-person school. During the pandemic, both my boys' grades have dropped significantly, and even as an active and involved parent, I have watched my boys lose their motivation and accountability for doing schoolwork. My son has an IEP and is suffering greatly without his daily class that helps with executive functioning skills and assistance with teachers. Please contact me with any questions. My children need to be in the classroom. And just a note, these comments are read as time-stamped as when the district received them. Okay. The next person I'd like to call on is Lucy Lister.
Mr. Montoya, Ms. Lister is not in the audience. Could you please read her comments?
Please vote for students to go back in person. My child is struggling with online instruction. This is not an adequate way to educate students at this age. She is also very depressed due to the lack of social interaction and engagement. We transferred her from a private school this year, thinking that Orange County School District would be a better option for her education. Her former private school is now going in person 5 days a week, and we are regretting this decision. And we are considering transferring her back if the public schools system cannot offer her the quality of education we were expecting. Online instruction only is not conducive to strong learning. We are handicapping our kids by forcing them to learn in this way. The science behind COVID does not justify forcing families to keep students from in-person learning. Please vote in favor of properly educating our kids in person. This shutdown has gone on long enough. Our bodies are made to fight off germs and viruses by having some exposure. We are weakening our kids' immunities by sheltering them. We can act responsibly and deserve the option to do that. Okay, I'd like to call on Elizabeth O'Donnell.
Mr. Montoya, Ms. O'Donnell is in the audience. Ms. O'Donnell, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand electronically.
Thank you, President Montoya and board and all other stakeholders there. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you all for your careful work. Recently, however, the staff and community were presented with a plan for return that I feel has flaws in regards to safety, flaws that would necessitate a pushed back opening date. That being said, this is what the district has publicly stated. Frequent between use cleaning will be taking place. Chairs, desks, and commonly touched surfaces need regular cleaning. 8 minutes for cleaning after periods during the school day. And Ecolab's peroxide multi-surface cleaner and disinfectant, 45-second dwell time, and spray wipe spray method used, PPE is not necessary. So my concerns, number one, dwell time of 45 seconds is for norovirus, not COVID-19. The literature states that a more broader claim, which would be COVID-19, will take 3 minutes to be effective. When you go to the EPA website and look up the product, it lists the norovirus again, not like other products that clearly state SARS-CoV-2, which is AKA COVID-19. Next, the PPE, while PPE is not necessary when diluted, it does state that if you do use it, you need to wash your hands after use. It also says that you should use proper ventilation, and proper ventilation is not outlined or addressed. Many classrooms have no functioning windows or natural flow of air. Additionally, the literature presented appears to be incorrect, wrong, perhaps. Dwell time is not 45 seconds. There is no literature that supports that claim of it kills COVID-19 in 45 seconds. I've looked everywhere, and I've even looked on Ecolab's own website, and that picture that was presented in the opening plan cannot be found, so it cannot be substantiated. In fact, the EPA lists only 36 products that have actually been tested and capable of killing COVID-19, and Ecolab's peroxide multi-surface cleaner is not listed. And last but not least, the time allotted for cleaning the classroom, desks, and chairs is 8 minutes. And that means that based on corrected and accurate information, whoever is going to be doing the cleaning has to start with a clean surface. That means they have to clean desks and chairs before they can disinfect. They have to use an EPA-approved liquid or aerosol and disinfectant wipes. The area needs to be well ventilated. You need to spray the desk and chairs until visibly wet. For liquid, that's the spray wipe spray method, which means spray until visibly wet, wipe with disinfectant wipe using a circular method, and then spray again and let evaporate. The spray should be allowed to dry for at least 5 minutes. And this 5 minutes is based on the actual factual average time of effective cleaners. And if the surface is still wet after 5 minutes, you may wipe that surface. But if you do touch that liquid, you do need to wash your hands. So as you can see, this seems highly improbable to complete due to the time restraints. These concerns over the safety and disinfecting capabilities of the district on whole, I feel are alarming. What is presented and what is reality is too different to overlook. I feel that if you take the requisite time to arrive at a conclusion for yourself, you too will have concerns over an imminent opening date. I feel that until these concerns can be addressed, more time should be given throughout the day for cleaning, and that factually effective disinfectant can be purchased, and any opening date should be put on hold. We are in this together, and we should, the board and schools, open together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Donnell. O'Donnell, can I ask this? You presented a lot of good, very good information here. Is there? Did you submit a how do you say information to be contacted or so forth if we need to have that to be done, or are you one of our employees or a scientist? It just seems this is very good information.
I am one of your employees, and I think we're all scientists, especially when it comes to our own health. We're going to investigate things that are going to affect us personally. And so I'm not just an advocate for myself, but for my fellow coworkers and for my students. And so when I looked at the information that was given to me, I've always taught my students that you have to look at the sources and make sure that they're credible. And so I'm just practicing what I preach.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your words. Okay, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to call on Ashley Hill.
Mr. Montoya, Ashley Hill is not in the audience. Please read her comments.
If classrooms are allowed 15 students per period, and some teachers teach up to 6 periods, that is 90 people a day they are being exposed to. Do any of the board members or administration have 90 people a day coming and going from their offices? Would they allow this many to pass through their living rooms daily? Just so everybody knows, Ms. Harder, can you let us know what information is required to submit a blue card? I know it's the physical one when we have regular board meetings, but on with the website.
Yes, there's a public comment card on our website. It's listed in several different places. Access to it is listed on several different places on the website. And we do ask that they submit their public comments by 3 o'clock on the day of the board meeting.
But what information are we asking on that blue card,
We are asking them their, let me go back here.
in case we need to contact them.
Sure. Well, it's not required that we have their name, their address is optional, telephone's optional, and email address, I believe, is optional also.
Thank you, Ms.
Correct.
Hardy.
Yes, but we do ask for the email address.
Okay. I'd like to now call on Amanda Oakes.
Mr. Montoya, Ms. Oakes is not in the audience. Can you please read her comment?
In our home, we have 4 kids in the FJUHSD, a senior, a sophomore, and 2 freshmen. 2 kids have IEPs. One is in the standard general education track, and one that is in the honors AP track. All 4 have had unique challenges during distance learning. The love of learning is gone. They all just trudge through the day and dread the next. But there is no doubt the kids with IEPs have huge obstacles. One of our kids with an IEP came to our family when he was 8 years old. He dealt with major trauma in his transition, but once he felt safe, loved, and secure, the trauma behavior stopped at the end of the year 1 mark, and we have not seen them again until now. Online learning has brought out so much confusion for him, very little connection with teachers, and has been absolutely overwhelming, making him resort to the behaviors we have not seen in 8 years. It is heartbreaking. The relational aspect of the teacher-student relationship is essential to the learning environment, and that cannot happen effectively over Zoom. Please understand, I do not fault the teachers or IEP team for this. I believe that most teachers are doing the best they can do in a situation they don't want to be in either. We believe with the right protocols, it is important to get kids back into the classroom, not only for educational purposes, but for their mental health as well, period. Okay, next I'd like to call on Magdalena Yabba.
Yes, Ms. Villalba is in the audience. Please raise your hand, Ms. Villalba. Ms. Villalba, are you talking? We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
there you go. Thank you.
Okay. As a Fullerton High School teacher, I appreciate how many different educational and safety aspects have been considered in order to reopen our schools. FJUHSD and each individual site created lengthy safety plans for the reopening of schools. These plans were presented at the board meetings and published on the district and individual school websites beginning on September 1st. With that being said, as a Latina educator that works with a predominantly Latinx population, I feel it my duty to draw attention to something I fear has been overlooked in these important reopening conversations. According to California Ed Code, Section 48985, when 15% or more of the students enrolled in public schools speak a single primary language other than English, a school is required to send home parental notifications in both English and the non-English language. Because some schools in Fullerton Joint have a student population of more than 15% with a primary language of Korean, and other schools have more than 15% with a primary language of Spanish, the district's reopening safety plans are legally required to be translated to both of these languages. As of 10/5, neither the school nor the district safety plans were available on the district website in either of these 2 languages. According to Los Angeles Times on September 26, in Orange County, Latinos account for 47% of coronavirus cases and 45% of COVID-19 deaths, despite comprising 35% of the population. Fullerton Joint serves Fullerton, Buena Park, and La Habra, all cities that have Latinx populations higher than the county average. According to the 2010 census data, Fullerton is 37.2% Latinx, Buena Park is 38.4%, and La Habra is 59.5%. Given the fact that communities of color have disproportionately been affected by the COVID pandemic, it gravely concerns me that neither our Korean or Spanish-speaking families have had access to the reopening safety plan. As I have watched our school board meetings for the last few months, I have been highly impressed with the noticeable increase in both community attendance and public comments. Unfortunately, a significant amount of the families we serve have been inadvertently excluded from this important process because they have not been provided the same materials as their English-speaking peers. For all intents and purposes, they have been denied the right to participate in the process that is designed to protect the safety of their children, families, and the community. I believe this oversight was unintentional. However, I do believe it needs to be remedied before we proceed as a district. It is my sincere hope that you would vote to postpone item 5.12, date of reopening school under hybrid schedule, from tonight's agenda. The vote on this highly important item should not occur until after the reopening safety plans are disseminated in both Korean and Spanish, and those families have had their opportunity to make public comments at future board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Villalba. So at this point, Dr. Scambray, she's asking some questions, employees asking some questions, that we'll be getting back to her and getting back to us with this. And I believe that we'll be getting some information about this as well.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused because I believe she's on our communications committee, and they've been well informed that the rather large document that our safety plan is in the midst of getting translated right now. And that has been a topic of discussion at each of those meetings that she's been in attendance. It should be done sometime next week. And that has been well communicated with the communications committee.
Thank you, Dr. Scambray. Thank you, Ms. Villalba. At this point, I'd like to call on Carrie Barron.
Yes, Miss Barone is in the audience. Can you please raise your hand if you'd like? Thank you. Okay, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much, board. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. My topic is on reopening, but it's also on rescheduling. My son is in attendance at Fullerton High School. He is on a 504 plan for epilepsy. He is currently spending about 12 hours a day on his Chromebook. He has 7 classes from 7 in the morning until 3 o'clock. He is on his Chromebook. He takes the 1 hour break. He chooses not to participate in every day in the student support time, which is fine because I feel like he needs that time to have a break. And then he has about 3 to 5 hours of homework on his Chromebook. He never leaves this room. He never leaves the house. And it's starting to really affect him, not only physically, but mentally as well. I've reached out to Mr. Montoya because he knows my son personally from junior high school. And I've also reached out to the principal, and I appreciate the vice principal contacting me and the teachers working with me at Fullerton High School on his schedule. However, I know that a lot of other parents have shared with me their concerns over Facebook and other communities that I am a part of, that the time that children are spending on their Chromebook is ridiculous. And I'm hoping that the school will consider opening. But in the meantime, I think it's also important to state that maybe a different schedule is appropriate. I have done research into many of the other high school districts in Orange County. Garden Grove, Anaheim Union, Huntington Beach, Capistrano, Irvine, Santa Ana all have block schedules. Students are not going to every single one of their classes every single day. They have maybe their meeting with all of their teachers on a Wednesday, and then they meet with different periods, maybe, and there's a lot. I mean, I spent an hour going and looking at all the bell schedules at all the different high schools online last night. Even my friend, whose daughter attends Oxford Academy, which is a very high renowned academy in Orange County, has 2 days of asynchronous learning. They do not attend any Zoom meetings on Tuesdays or Thursdays. And this gives students an opportunity to either meet with their teachers or work on catching up with work. Again, I know I'm a teacher myself. In my home, we have 3 people going to 3 different districts. So I understand the balance of what's happened and the decisions that the board has to make is not an easy one. But I'm also wanting them to consider the idea in the interim in starting the next quarter that maybe some adjustments to school schedules might be in order if we're not going to be going back into the hybrid right away. Thank you for your time for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you very much for your voice. I'd like to call on Laura Rosenkrance.
Yes, Mr. Montoya, Ms. Rosenkrause is in the audience. Please raise your hand. Thank you. You'll need to unmute, please. Thank you.
Hello, thank you to all of you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm the parent of 2 students at Sunny Hills High School. I've watched as they've done their best to learn through a screen, isolated in their rooms, navigating countless technical difficulties, and without face-to-face interaction. I've watched as they've lost motivation, grown in frustration, and have increased feelings of sadness and loss over all that they are missing. And I know this is a frequent story. Probably most parents could tell this same story in one version or another. But I want to plead with you, please do not put off opening our schools any longer. You were elected to make decisions that would best serve all the students in our community. You've heard from many parents tonight about how this process is failing our kids, and the research and the real world data clearly show 2 things that I want to bring to your attention. Number 1, students learn best in person, in community, in the classroom. The research shows this. And number 2, across the world and in the United States, students and teachers have not experienced increased health risks when schools have opened in person. There are studies that show this. I want to tell you a little bit about them. But I want to tell you that this is why so many schools in Europe and Asia are open without consequence. Schools in Georgia and Florida and in other parts of the country have been open for weeks with millions of children safely receiving an in-person education. Here are some of the facts. According to a comprehensive study of school openings in Finland and in Sweden, published by the Public Health Agency of Sweden, comparing risk to both students up to age 19 and to teachers, they concluded that number 1, students in school did not contribute significantly to the transmission of COVID in the community. And number 2, teachers faced no increased risk by comparison to other professions. I want that to sink in. Other professions have the same outcomes as teachers when teachers go back to the classroom. It's not an additional risk. That's what the real world experience shows and the studies. I'm happy to provide you with documentation of these studies and others. It's important to view the facts dispassionately. Unless a teacher is older and has significant pre-existing conditions, that teacher is more likely to die while driving to school than to die from COVID. Accommodations should be made for teachers who have significant health problems. I think we need to make accommodations for people in that situation. However, fears and delays that are not based in science, data, and real-world experience should not be allowed to keep our school doors shut any longer. Our kids' education has been sacrificed for too long. I hope that you will be guided by facts and not emotions when making decisions about our kids' education and mental health. Please, for the sake of our students, reopen our high schools as soon as possible. No more delays. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Rosenkrance.
Is Christine here?
I'd like to call on Christine Watson.
Ms. President Montoya, Ms. Watson is not in the audience. Can you please read her comments?
This is from Christine Watson. The emotional, mental, and social ramifications of students being out of school have taken a toll. Our teachers are doing the best they can, but research continually demonstrates that students learn best when in proximity to others. And she cited 3 references: Bandura, Vygotsky, Ryan and Desi. The psychologist's issues of existing in isolation are more damaging to our students than the risk of returning to school with proper protocols such as masks, physical distancing, and so forth. Please allow them to return in person ASAP. Now I'd like to call on Brooke Brooks.
Ms. Brooks, if you're in the audience, please raise your hand. We have a couple of people with a similar name. We have a submission by Brooke Brooks. So if you're in the audience and would like to read your comments, please raise your hand. You can be acknowledged. Okay, Mr. Montoya, doesn't look like she's here. So if you'd like to go ahead and read her comments.
From Brooke Brooks. My son is a senior at Sunny Hills High School. He has been working diligently since March to complete coursework, prepare for AP and IB tests, and maintain a high GPA. He has had perfect attendance. He has had perfect attendance during remote instruction, has not missed any assignments or faltered in his work. But being stuck at home doing school online has taken a toll on him. He no longer has the same joy that he has had for school. He misses being in class with his friends and teachers. Furthermore, he is missing being a senior on campus, something he and most of his classmates have been looking forward to since their freshman year. As a family, we are not scared of the virus. We are not reckless and use caution when we feel it is necessary. But we think our kids need to be back in school, on campus, in person. I urge you to do everything possible to make this happen and happen sooner than later. It is hard to be cooped up in a bedroom, staring at a small Chromebook screen, trying to have conversation with squares on that screen. Learning important content, knowing that you will be tested on it in the spring, and limited to digital interaction with friends and classmates. This isn't good for our kids. There is a 99% survival rate for the virus. Let them go back to school. Okay, at this point, I'd like to call on Lori McGee.
Yes, Ms. McGee is in the audience. Please raise your hand and unmute. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm writing to express my dissatisfaction with the schedule in the MOU. The schedule for return to hybrid fails to adequately address the overwhelming and incapacitating stress, disengagement, and burnout our students are currently experiencing. Very simple and reasonable requests to alleviate the current stress load faced by students were not heeded during the MOU negotiation process. Most of these requests are already happening in other local districts, as a previous parent pointed out. So I'm truly at a loss as to why our district would not consider them. Here are two simple changes to the proposed schedule that would help the current feeling of overwhelming burden and stress our students are experiencing. Number one, reduce instructional minutes per period. Quality is not the same as quantity. Developing engaging lessons to be delivered remotely takes an incredible amount of time for teachers. My light just went out. I'm sitting in my car. Okay, now I'm back. More minutes per period does not equate to more learning for students if they aren't receiving high quality instruction. Students and teachers are at a breaking point stress-wise, and fewer synchronous minutes would obviously be better for both students and teachers' stress levels. Not only that, but it simply defies logic to ignore the correlation between screen fatigue and low performance. We know students are struggling right now, so we should be reducing their screen time to increase their success. Number two, add 1 day a week of asynchronous learning. Yes, a day without a Zoom. Students are completely burned out. Their eyes hurt, they have migraines, and their backs are sore. Simply put, they need a break from staring at their screens. On top of that, staff morale in this district is at an all-time low. Many teachers are experiencing extreme fatigue, depression, anxiety, feeling completely overwhelmed and at the breaking point, working many hours over and above contract, and being given zero time to adapt lessons and grades. Staff meetings, sadly, regularly involve tears these days. FJUHSD teachers need the support of the school board. If this isn't a time to bend, what is? So I ask you, if 240 is the minimum minutes of required instruction per day, and we are over 300, why can we not make Wednesdays a Zoom free day with asynchronous learning activities? Most other districts are already doing this, so why can't we? Most other districts are also using fewer instructional minutes per period, so why can't we? Thank you for your time, and I do appreciate the opportunity to be heard and for all of your service to our community.
Thank you, Ms. McGee. Dr. Scambray, with that last part, can you get to talk to the board about I'd like to ask you a couple questions on that. I know
Sure.
we're not supposed to respond. Okay, thank you. I'd like to call on Amanda Geiser.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Geiser is in the audience. Can you please raise your hand and unmute, please? Thank you.
Thank you to the board. I have emailed the board members regarding teacher morale and more extensively about hybrid as well. Here is my public comment. My name is Amanda Geiser. I've been teaching in the district for 17 years. I am an FSTO union rep and a 16-year Fullerton citizen. I'm here to employ you to wait on starting hybrid. Why are we starting over by learning a new model in the middle of a semester? We've finally figured out our routines and students are starting to respond positively. It's taken 8 weeks. Hybrid means we won't be adjusted until end of semester. Why not start fresh second semester if you can guarantee the safety of returning by then? Let's talk reality. No group work with desks 6 feet apart. No walking the room if teachers are maintaining 6 feet. Live stream students trying to understand teachers digitally through a mask. In-person students are still virtual, no exchanging of papers. No teaching from the board, teachers will be answering questions and monitoring in-person and online students, maintaining a safe online environment and trying to engage students. Uncomfortable, eerily quiet, and even more isolating. An apocalyptic institution, not a nurturing learning environment. Instead of our students advancing, hybrid will set their learning back as we all adjust once again. Let's talk safety. You promised us the safety committee would meet to see if it was possible to go back safely, and we would only go back when it was safe. It's my understanding that the safety committee often operated under the direction of we are going back, so we have to figure it out, not can we go back safely. We still don't know who is going to clean the desks between periods. Teachers can't be required to per the MOU. Students can't be forced to. The chemicals need 5 minutes, not 45 seconds as previously stated, and plenty of ventilation, which most classrooms on certain campuses don't have. The district can't afford additional classified staff to assist our students, our custodians. Some cohorts are above 10 students, so there's no guarantee of 6 feet in smaller rooms. There's no plastic partitions for students nor teachers' desks. Still no answers as to who will be notified and quarantined regarding positive cases. We keep hearing the district will comply with the county and state, but this feels like passing the accountability, not making the commitment. It's not safe to go back. Every student and teacher exposed needs to be notified. The virus can be transmitted through the air further than the 6 feet as previously thought. To do this contract tracing, it will be extensive and it will take time having to notify and possibly quarantine half of the school once you encounter all of the students that have been in all of the classes throughout the day, but it's necessary. Please remember, each of you has been voted into your position by your constituents who rely on and trust you to make wise decisions in the best interest of all of us. The protocol is and should be that you, the school board, make these decisions for the district to follow instead of the district solely making these decisions. If the district can't answer the question how the classes will be cleaned and sanitized in between classes, until that's handled, the discussion of going to hybrid should be stopped. If the district can't answer that, it can't guarantee our safe return, nor can you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Geiser. I'd like to call on Anita Axe.
Yes, Ms. Axe is in the audience. Please raise your hand and thank you, and unmute, and you can begin.
Good evening. As a parent in the district, I would like to encourage you this evening to move to reopen the high schools for in-person instruction. And yes, it is possible. The teachers have been doing their best and a good job with online instruction. However, it does not replace the quality of education that comes from face-to-face instruction that the students had before the coronavirus. Not all students in our district are equally able to obtain a good education from district learning due to crowded and noisy home situations, at-risk environments, poor and overloaded internet connections, parents who need to work outside of the home, and a lack of motivation and declining mental health from often being home alone. If in-person instruction is not reinstated, our district is at risk of creating an educational disparity. Definitely not something we want for our students in our community in 2020 and beyond. As a school board, you have the responsibility to serve all the students equally in the community with the best education. And right now, that would be done by reopening schools for in-person instruction. The safety and reopening plan for each of our schools goes above and beyond the requirements to keep our students and teachers safe and to minimize the spread of the virus between teachers and students. Multiple studies have shown that school is safe for young people with low risk infection of COVID. And as of today, from a Google search, there are no reports of teacher deaths with COVID as a result of being infected in the classroom with students. Schools across Europe and Asia have been open without harmful consequence, and many states in the US that have had schools have been open for weeks, with millions of young people safely and successfully receiving an in-person education. As you are probably aware, the coronavirus cases in Orange County are very low, currently 5.2 cases per 100,000 people, and the percentage hospitalized even lower. Now is the time to reopen schools for the well-being of our students. Yesterday, in the Great Barrington Declaration signed by over 4,500 infectious disease epidemiologists, public health scientists, and medical practitioners, it was declared, quote, "Keeping students out of school is a grave injustice." I encourage you to uphold your school board role and responsibilities for our students and not to bow to fear from the virus nor pressure from the teachers union, but to do what is good, just, and right for the whole well-being of our students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call on Becky Spradley.
Mr. Montoya, we do not see Becky Spradley in the audience. If she is, raise your hand. Okay, she's not there. President Montoya, please read her comment.
My Zoom page just moved, so she didn't come in? Okay. Okay. Becky Spradley, please strongly consider reopening schools for in-person attendance. Our daughters are 9th and 10th grade level, and the amount of time they have to be on screens every day impacts their emotional and social health. Our daughters used to enjoy and look forward to going to school, and now they are struggling and feel motivated. Our daughters used to enjoy and look forward to school, and now they are struggling and feel motivated and engaged. Struggling to feel motivated and engaged. As a parent who loves and values their education, this is very concerning. COVID is not the only health issue to take into consideration. Please reopen. And that concludes our public comment on the